Welcome everyone once again. I am very happy to see you all here, and I'm also very excited that we're hosting this talk today with our three amazing speakers, Mick, Leo, and Clay. This has been the most popular event this quarter, so there has been a lot of interest. And I think that this is for two reasons. First of all, everyone is a bit curious about AI and how we can use it. And also everyone is a bit concerned. So there's a lot of discussions about how it's going to replace us, but maybe it's not going to replace us if we learn how to master it. Hence this particular event. We have three different talks for three different levels of, I would say, AI know-how. We will start with Mick, who's going to give us a good understanding of Midjourney, and we're going follow with Leo and generative imagery open source tools to Clay and AI and in pair coding. Just in general, to let you know about the agenda, we have more or less 30 minutes for each talk, and that includes the Q&A. If at any point you have a question to any of the speakers, please feel free to use the chat to log your question, but also there will be some time, hopefully, for you to raise your hand and just ask your question at the end of each talk. Lovely. So why don't we start? Mick, over to you.
Hello. Right, I am Mick. I'm a design director. I started mucking about with Midjourney about this time last year, no, a little bit before that, and wasn't impressed with it at all until I realized that I could be an illustrator. I could basically do anything that I couldn't do before, that illustration wise, photography wise. I didn't need to go out and photograph things. I could do it on my own with my own computer, well, somebody else's computer, but and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's what really got me started. Is we've got to embrace it, because it's there, it's getting better, it's not going to go away. So it's just a tool. It's like when I first started in design 30 years ago, and Macs arrived, and I started using Macs straight away. That was it. That was me done, hooked. While my tutors at college were going, no, you need to progress your traditional skills, and I've never used them really to this day. I've not used the type scale really since I left college. But AI is we're at that point, in my opinion. So if anyone's got questions, just shout. But I'm going to take you through how you'd go from absolutely knowing nothing about Midjourney to using some techniques to make photographic imagery, basically, and then some tweaks you can make to those prompts that immediately turn those into illustrations and paintings. So with that, I'll get on, if that's all right. So first of all, with Midjourney, you're going to have to set up some boring bits, which is you're going to need to get a Discord account, which your kids might have if you've got kids. Discord's mainly used for gaming servers where kids and gamers can chat to each other. But basically, you go to Discord and log in, get yourself a Discord account. You may need to register. I'll make this presentation available afterwards, but you go and register, create an account. At this point, once you've created an account, it'll ask you to make a server. You can either do this bit here, because this is quite important for Midjourney, because this is where you're going to chat with Midjourney, rather than being in the complete mind kind of numbing dizziness that it is in the actual Midjourney server on Discord. If I'm going too fast, stop me. If I'm not, hurry me along. But this is where you'll make this server. Don't worry if you don't do it, we can add it later on. Also, Discord comes any app, so an app for every single device you've got. So you can use Midjourney through Discord on your phone, your tablet, your PC, your Mac. You can take it anyway. Like people do, they read Snapchat or Instagram on the loo. You can now create imagery from the bathroom if you like. But download that and then go to the Midjourney server, which is midjourney.com, and join the beta program. It's handily placed right at the bottom of the screen where you can't see it, which is a big UX fail, but it's always in beta. Join the beta. Unfortunately, there's no free versions anymore, but if you hit that join button, you're going to get a Discord invite. It'll take you to Discord, and you'll get a Discord screen like this where you've had the little Midjourney bot has been added to your Discord app. You used to be able to go into here and start making imagery. Unfortunately, it's closed because there's no free accounts, but it'll give you a very quick overview about how to use Midjourney, how to use it. Everything starts with the word /prompt, and then you start typing what you want to make, which we'll come back to in a minute. But you can't have a free account anymore, so you're going to have to subscribe, which takes you back. If you hit subscribe, you get a little a unique code, which is here on the left. Don't share it with anybody. That's your access code for Midjourney. If you share it with somebody, they're going to use your money. If you want to share it with them, it's basically like a Netflix account. You can share it if you want. It's up to you. Anyway, you go to the Midjourney, pick your subscription payment that you want to use. Personally, I just use the basic one. If I need to top up, there's a couple of cheats you can do, which is going and rating imagery against each other. So on the Midjourney, once you remember, you get this rate images screen. You spend 20 minutes in your lunchtime, and they give you a free hour, which is basically £5 worth of free time for 20 minutes of basically looking at 2 images and deciding which one looks best through your lunchtime. So if you don't want to spend 20 quid or 30 quid a month, spend a tenner and top it up. Right, so the fun bit, once you've got your Discord sorted out, this is my Discord. So as you can see, it gets a little bit frantic, especially if you're inside the Midjourney app. So my advice is to add Midjourney to your own little server that you've done, which is laid out on the Midjourney website of how to add it to your app or to your Discord server, which will then give you on your server a little room, a peace and quiet, where there's just you and Midjourney, and in my case, my kids, that are available on Discord. And at which point you can then start adding prompts. To keep everything nice and tidy, create yourself a set of text channels, which are just basically folders, scrapbooks, where you can organize all your clients if you do stuff for clients, or you can just put styles in there or ideas, which is quite, it's the way it works. It's just tidiness. It's next to cleanliness, godliness, whatever. Anyway, so we've got a place to start, and we'll start with the prompt. Everything starts with /imagine. We start off with imagining a small blue horse. In this case, it just returns some random images of little blue horses. But my advice and my experience is to start off with something small and then just keep adding to it. So from here, I did this morning. It's a photograph of a small blue horse, which returns you a photograph rather than an illustration. It's a horse with a knight on it. So you just keep adding and adding layers to it. Your punctuation is important, because there's a difference between these two images where there's a bit of a syntax error because there's no comma. If you put that in, the actual model inside Midjourney understands it better, because we're up to version 6. It's changed quite a lot in the last year and a half between versions 4, 5, and 6, where it's now recognizing language a lot better rather than just isolated words. So you could just throw a load of words in it and just group them. It used to group them together, but if you had lots of references to a horse, you'd get better horses. But now it's just that initial idea, and you need to build on that initial idea by giving it more and more information to feed itself with. So the more information you can provide, the better the image is going to get back. So now we're a photograph of a horse with a knight. but I want it more as a portrait, so I ask it to do it in the style of a portrait photographer, which gets me back something a little more like a portrait. If you see the top right one, that's actually really getting into that portrait photography in a studio without asking it. It's just giving it that nudge, and it'll start going in that direction. But I'd rather be having a dynamic moving image of a horse, so change my prompt to be the style of action photography and immediately get back moving images of a horse. From there, add tune and lighting, which is to go back and put some prompts in about what sort of lighting you want, which is directly referencing photographs that you've seen, or lighting techniques. So if you're a top photographer, then 3-point light rigs work, anything like that. But just using cinematic effects also works quite well. A lot of stuff on YouTube about this, but it's moved so fast in such a short space of time. There's a lot of stuff's out of date, but yeah, I'll endeavour to keep updating this deck if you check into it. From updating my lighting, I then go up to updating the lens on the camera, which then makes it more realistic. So these images start to get more defined, more photographic in this case. Adding a camera body to it again also changes the quality of the imagery that comes back. So in this case, I tend to use a lot of Leica stuff. Can't afford them in real life, but they're quite good on Midjourney. You can then go back and start tuning your prompt. So here in this slide, it's just a night on horseback with cinematic lighting and stuff. If you then start to grade the photography as well, which is what's changed this most from this image to this image, in the top right, is the fact it's got professional color grade added to it. It understands it really well. It's what's made lots of my stuff really sing when compared to stuff that doesn't have that prompt in it of professional color grading. So I find that really useful. You can then fine tune your prompt going from there, because this has basically just changed the photograph of a night, and the prompt changes to a watercolor, and you immediately just get back a watercolor of exactly the same thing that you had before, which absolutely blows my mind that you can just change one word and you just get something completely different. Again, this was the same prompt but changed for a vector illustration, one in the style of a skateboard stick out, one just a vector illustration with a graffiti attached to it. Didn't really get graffiti back from it, but I've got something that's completely different back from it just by changing what I want it to produce. You know, if you wanted a logo, if you put that in, you'll get something completely different back. But the same prompt will work. You just need to fine tune those little bits of it. I hope this isn't going too fast for everybody. So this was a little slide that just shows what you can do just by changing a little prompt. It goes from a blue horse that's like kind of that random one that's on the number 4 of the first one, the doodle. It's like it's mind blowing what you can do with just like one sentence, and you get this guy on a horse with a burning castle in the background, and it's just using keywords. So that was my understanding of it. You can also use shortcuts if you like to use the no contrast cinematic lighting to blah 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 lenses and everything. You can type in /prefer option set, and you can save those as shortcuts inside Midjourney, so you can always bring it back. I set this up on mine earlier on, so you just copy the prompt you want to use, type in prefer option set, hit enter, paste, hit enter, name your shortcut, hit enter, and then it's set. So you can just type -- whatever you set as a shortcut prompt code. In my case, it was so whenever, if I type now, after my prompt or dash dash, it will add no contrast cinematic lighting, Tamron MC28, blah blah blah. So I don't have to type it in all the time. So that's something I highly recommend people do, is you set yourself a load of shortcuts, write them down so you don't forget. You can always find out what they are by just typing prefer option set, and it'll give you a list of all the things you've got stored. But it's super useful if you're doing stuff and you want consistent styles. Another super useful tool is shorten. So if you end up getting a really, really long prompt, like a paragraph's worth, you can just type /shorten and then paste your prompt in there, and it will give you feedback about what words it's picking up, what it's seen as being important. You can then automatically generate those images. So here it went down to a knight and a blue horse in the end. It just gave me 5 different examples, which you can't really reach. It's a bit too zoomed out. But it'll give you 5 prompts, and then from that you'll get 5 sets of images back. So it goes results 1 to 5 from the previous slide. Bottom right, it's not quite on pasted one of them. But yeah, they basically just get less and less finessed as the prompt gets shorter again. So you can also use describe. So out of those images from the shortened ones, I preferred the first top right one. So I've saved this image to my desktop, re-uploaded it into Midjourney by using /describe, which you can either give it a URL to an image, or you can upload an image. From that, it'll look at that image and it'll give you a prompt back, which is really useful if you want to start learning how to start picking things out and what it's recognizing in those things as being important. And from that, you get a load of different images back. So I've now fed it back its own offerings, and it starts giving me something completely different. It's just recognizes a bit of snow in the previous image. It's picked up on that, and it starts feeding back, and you get some really nice things coming back out of it that way. That's a technique that I've used. If you get stuck when you try to do something, if you're doing prompt engineering and you're working on a project for a client, typically pitches is what I've used it for. You can just start feeding it either back to itself, or you can start feeding those images into another AI generating image generator like DALL-E, which is on ChatGPT, which I'm not covering here, but I can do at a later point. Another important bit is the aspect ratio. So the default of Midjourney is a 1:1 square, but if you suffix everything at the end with a --AR and then give it an aspect ratio of your choosing, 16 to 9, 9 to 16 in this case, that's what comes back. And I think that was the end of this, because I thought it was going to be a lot longer, but I'm not. I'm rambling and going very quickly and leaving time for people to ask questions. But this, I'm going to give this presentation to Eva. If you've got access to it, gladly take it. Give us a shout if you want to know anything. If I've gone too fast, I'm on Slack, just give us a shout. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll try to talk a bit more slowly.
Thank you, Mick. Oh, we've got a question from George. George, would you like to ask it?
I'll read the licensing terms. It's anything you produce, you own, is my understanding of it. But anybody else with the same combination of words and by chance the same seed number can produce the same image. So if you can use a term called --seed, which will limit the generation to a specific set of terms. And if I give you a prompt and that seed number, which is basically what the starting point for the computer to start looking or making its noise, how will this work, blah blah blah. But if I give you exactly the same prompt and the exact same seed number, you will get exactly the same result. So it's that seed number is infinite. The chances of 2 people getting the same image, exactly the same image, are so minute it's untrue. But it's a minute possibility. It's it's like the start of the universe, where two things that couldn't possibly existed at the same time, and you've got the Big Bang. So yeah, but licensing wise, it's all Creative Commons as far as I'm aware, and anything you make, you own, but they can use it in their magazine. If that explains that. I mean, if you're worried about copyrights and stuff, you can. The guys coming afterwards, Leonardo and Clay, are doing different things where they're making their own servers. So
I think we also had a question from Jeffrey. I think I saw Jeffrey raising his hand. So Jeffrey, over to you if you'd like to take over. Okay, it was a mistake. That's all right. Any other questions, Jimmy?
There was somebody mentioned consistency. What kind of consistency are you looking for? If you can extrapolate on that, I can attempt to give you a brief description. If you're looking for character consistency, there's a couple of ways of doing it. But you can generate consistency by giving reference images to, in a similar sort of way as describe. You can, as part of that prompt, you'd use 5 images as kind of what's the term I'm looking for, as kind of the mean value. So if you make 5 images that you're fairly happy with in consistency, you can group them together. Again, you can put that into one of those preferred option sets. And you can just use those to drive consistency. So you can make an image, you can make an image now. Give me a second to find a way of saying this without it being really complicated. Say you generated an image and it had the wrong face on it. So you generate an image of, a superhero. It's got the wrong face on it, but you've got 5 images of a superhero's face. You could adjust that image by going back into Midjourney and just altering an area in Midjourney. There's a prompt to do that where you can alter an area, and you can select that area, then feed it your 5 images that you like that will give you a consistent face, and it will use those to alter the generated image that you've just made that's got the wrong face. Does that make sense? So you kind of need a contact sheet of, the more you've got for a contact sheet of things you like. I started mine by making cartoon characters. I'm making like a test sheet for cartoon characters, which was all the same character but in different poses, and then you can go through that. And you can turn those into humans, enlarge them, save them, and eventually you'll get a set that you like, and you can use them for consistency. And I used it on a pitch for a diabetes drug, I think it was, where they needed the same lady in a 30-second script for a TV commercial as a storyboard, and it was a lady and a dog. So I just get a consistent dog face and a consistent woman's face across like 15-20 images for a storyboard. But once you get that cracked and you've got a set that you can use, you can just use those as that reference point to go back and change.
Fantastic. I have a question. For someone that needs to start with like this journey, would you recommend DALL-E or Midjourney?
For me, it's been Midjourney. I just feel that it's a lot better at making images. But then this Sora has just come out on ChatGPT, the video software, which has absolutely blown my mind over the weekend. But as far as still imagery at the moment goes, Midjourney still smashes it. What they've done, whether it's right or wrong, is somebody's fed it the internet now. If you give it a prompt to say Princess Leia, you get Princess Leia back. or C3PO. I can do illustrations in the style of one of my mates who works on Star Wars, Jake Davis, and say, give me a drawing of this creature in the style of Jake Davis, and I get Jake's drawings back that he's like given to my kids. Yeah, they've done it. It's done. We can't change it. I don't, it's out there. If we do change it, I don't know how. But it's a tool. Don't think of it as the enemy. Is my advice. It's something there to be used, just like Adobe Illustrator was. And then there was this big thing about, do you use freehand or do you use Illustrator? And eventually one of them won, and we've got Illustrator and freehand's dead. It's just use it as a tool. Don't be scared of it. Embrace it, and it will make your life easier rather than harder. You'll be able to do more things than if you use it. I think.
We have time for one more question, if anyone would like to ask.
Go on, I don't bite. Or right, I'm trying not to be complicated, because one of my son's friends came around the other day and said, "Do you feel thick when you talk to your dad?" And it's like, I'm trying not to be. I'm trying to do it really easily.
Actually, I've got a question. Are there any? I've not really explored AI much, but are there any at the moment that are worth using that are actually still free?
There are. Off the top of my head, I don't have a list because I generally tend to use Midjourney. But there are some. Stable Diffusion, but you need something to run it on, Hernan. That's the only problem with that. I did have a version running inside of a Stable Diffusion running inside Houdini, which sounds really complicated, but once you've got it installed, it's how Midjourney works. And you can run Houdini for free. It works inside the Apprentice version, so you could download that and run it yourself. You'll need a big computer. Is the only problem. I'll put a list together and put it on Slack at some point this week. If it's not there, just prod me and remind me to do it. But I'll probably add it to the end of or the start of this presentation. But there's definitely stuff out there that you can use that's really good. There's a couple of ones where you can scamp locations and colors and stuff, and it'll give you, along with your prompts, it'll give you back imagery. So you can kind of do little bits of sketching, and it'll fill in the blanks basically.
Cool, thanks.
And stay with us, Alison, because the next talk is about Stable Diffusion with some extra add-ons on top. So you might also find out something new and helpful. I think we have one more question, and this should be has to be the last question in this instance. So sorry about it, but we need to keep track of time. So Hollywood M, what is your question?
Sorry, it's actually Caitlin. It's my Gmail that sticks it like that. This is so informative. Just a really quick one. Why are we using Midjourney? Like, do we have the rights to use it in obviously for presentations, but where else can we use it? Can we use it within logos where it comes in? Yep. Can we use it on our websites? Like, is the rights 100% ours once we create it?
As far as I'm aware, yes. There seems to be some contention with advertising agencies saying it's not, but it's just because that minute possibility that somebody could, with this by luck, manage to put together exactly the same prompt and have the same seed number and get back the same bit of work. But as I said earlier, that the chances of that are absolutely infinitesimally small. You probably got more chance of winning the lottery and being hit by a meteorite than you have of somebody else, coming up with the same prompt and the same seed number. It's like that's how vast that number is. So it's as far as Midjourney are concerned, it's all copyright is yours. So,
amazing, thank you so much.
So, and I'm not sponsored by them. I just quite like using it. So anyway, thank you ever so much for your time. I'm putting up with a gibbering old man. And if you've got any questions, contact me on Slack. Yeah.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you so much. I can see that you've got a round of huge applause, so I'm pretty sure everyone has enjoyed it. And over to Leonardo now with some more generative imagery.
Yeah, let me just share my slide. Can you see my? Was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So welcome everybody to this second part of the talk. I'll show you my research and development actually on open source tool and some results that I achieved in the last year and a half. My basically initial test was about character design and some environment for different purposes. But actually, at the end, I decided to implement this kind of solution that I found in visual effects. That is basically the field where I came from. In fact, I'm a VFX artist or technical director. I worked in VFX since a long time. It's almost 20 years that I work in the visual effects environment. And recently, in the last 2 years, I was basically scared. Actually, I was freaking out about AI because every day I was watching videos or reading papers because I'm a really technical person, so I can read paper and understand pretty much the code. And then I realized that the AI was there and was advancing really fast, and probably a lot of job and department in my field will completely wipe out from AI technology. Then I decided to take a break from my primary job after the Hollywood strike. So I transformed basically a bad occurrence, like the Hollywood strike that completely stopped the visual effect industry for at least 6 months. And then I decided to invest my own time and money and do a personal investment and study on this kind of topic. And then yes, after I started to understood actually the potentiality of these new tools. I started the tool from Midjourney, but for me was like a black box that you can put input and you got random output, and I didn't like at all for 2 reasons. Now, one is not open source, so basically you don't have any idea what the software does. And the second was like that the results were really too random. I didn't have enough control, so I decided to investigate on other solution. And I found basically a good solution in Stable Diffusion. Before I started with Disco Diffusion, it's a very old algorithm. It was super slow and with a lot of really not nice result. Then I started with Stable Diffusion. And then I decided that Stable Diffusion was the right way to go. So I decided to read everything about the Stable Diffusion noise algorithm and the Stable Diffusion material. It was in internet and it's open source, so you can read it. And I think so that the most important thing using Stable Diffusion is that you can change the models. And the models are basically a model. It's basically a training data that you can use for some purpose. So you have a model for photography, you have some model for illustration, some model for manga illustration styles, some model for cartoon, and I'll show you all of that. So basically, these two websites, Hugging Face and Civit AI, they basically are like a huge container of different models. And then from there, you can basically download the model that you need, and install the model in the software that runs Stable Diffusion. I found a really clever solution, actually, using Stable Swarm initially, but actually I abandoned when I discovered it was that it was open source, a software called Comfy UI. Why? Because basically I went for the open source because I want the maximum control on the image that I'll get, and I want to understand under the hood how works the workflow, and I want definitely that my software it's based on Python. That's because Python it's very common in the visual effects pipeline. So basically, this one was like another point check. And everything in my local machine, everything it's for free, it's open source. And then or if the software that I choose support Python, then I can program my own bridge for other 3D software like Maya, Houdini, Blender, and all software that basically support Python. And more important, if my hardware is not enough, then I can leverage in Google Colab. Google Colab, it's a beautiful container that Google, that if you have basically a Google account you have, it's quite high, but it's in the Google tools. Google Colab, it permits to run Python code with and he uses as a hard drive your Google Drive, and you can choose which kind of processor in cloud. I mean, in which kind of processor you can run the code. So basically, you can have a GPU. Now I have a Google Colab and I have a professional account. So basically, I have a high standard of GPU. But even with the Google Colab free, you have high standard GPU that are basically tensor processor units that basically are GPU that are made for tensors algorithm. And Stable Diffusion use basically PyTorch inside, and PyTorch use tensors algorithm. So another point very important about my research was a different how flexible could be the result and which result I can achieve changing the models. Okay, so basically I did those kind of research in the fashion industry, in the photographic, in the food advertising, and I was my goal was reusable results and realistic, and also illustration, character design or feature animation style, and pixel art for video, why not? And then the most important thing that I was looking for that is not possible in Midjourney, at least was not possible in the version that I leave Midjourney, because I left the Midjourney version 4, so now I don't know if it's possible or not. Giving an input image as a source, I want actually that the software and the give me back the result, but based on my input. And this one was for me really fundamental. Then this one is the first test about fashion, a bit of research, of course, about fashion already example, and you can see that this guy and this guy are exactly the same. And this girl and this girl are exactly the same. And the hands actually works. So the problem with the hands, there are some tricks that I found in the workflow and to make it work. And then the second, this one actually it's just from prompt. So basically, using a prompt quite descriptive, you get some result. And this one actually, I'm quite happy about those results. So this one actually was like another photography example using a different model. So basically, black and white photography with a really hard thing to describe for an algorithm like hairs, wet and rain, or like a cute kitty, right? And then this one actually was my research about environmental landscape. Okay, so basically this canyon with the snow and this beautiful island, and then something more funny like illustration, character design, 3D illustration. This one actually it's a 2D illustration, and then this one it's always like using a prompt. So basically, character designer R&D example on character design like a 2D character, like a Disney character or pixel art, or this kind of character that is like a 3D character. And I was not, I was actually really satisfied, but at the time I didn't know there were the possibility to use source image to get some results. So basically, this one was my question. Okay, the results are actually unpredictable, so like Midjourney, but actually are very good as a quality. So I want to find a method to drive this algorithm. And then I did some research, and then I decided that the right method was using my 3D skills and my VFX experience to make a base image and give the base image to the algorithm. And this is the result. This is basically my 3D image that is made with Houdini. So I did the fluid simulation and this kind of Ferrero Rocher shape. This one is the algorithm that with the source image and some prompts can actually understand what I'm telling. Okay, I want like a chocolate with some nuts and improve the chocolate, and actually in the algorithm is improve the chocolate a lot. And if you use another option that it's called weight, so you can decide how much he will take in consideration the original image. So basically, like this one, it's weight 0.5. From 0 is the original. The weight can do from 0 to 1. So 0 is consistent, and he tried to match the original image. And 1, he take the data, the silhouette data of the original image, but invent something completely new. And this one actually, it's amazing. And this one actually was my goal, and I was very happy at this point. So I decided to go crazy with the experiment. And then from Blender, just using some basic primitive and telling, okay, this one actually it's my basic image. Using this shape, get me like a futuristic city, right? And then you can recognize actually the shape of the input image, but with an elaboration from the tensor algorithm. And this one actually was like this one blew my mind. And here I understood how powerful is this tool if you can drive the results. So I went crazy a lot. And this one actually, it's like camera projection. This one actually, I reconstruct part of Florence from a camera projection. This one is an old project made in Blender. And I was make like a futuristic city. So basically, this one is my original image, and I said to the algorithm, okay, go crazy. So use just the image as a base, but invent the rest. And this one, it's amazing because he interpreted it like in completely different way, but it's completely actually, it's completely working. It's completely consistent in the image because he knew that here basically there is water, because here there is the reflection of the water. And this structure that he's invented completely from my input, I was like, I'm amazed by this. And this one actually is even better because you can see the reflex on the water, and the water comes half from 3D and also from the algorithm. So basically the algorithm was able to understand that here there was like water. And this one is absolutely correct. So basically this one is an amazing result for environment artist, environment department. This one can save a lot of time in visual effects industry for movies. So let's go forward. This one actually was my test, and here I decide, okay, let's go crazy also with this one. So changing the description, but with the same image, he invented absolutely something new. Like it's not anymore a bonbon chocolate, but it's something like different, but it's look like real and look like a consistent, and it works. And the algorithm basically interpretate this light something liquid, and then he decided to do a reflex, and this one it's absolutely amazing. So this one is the graph to achieve all of this. As you can see, it's very simple. I'm just joking. Actually, the real graph is this one. This one is the graph in the software that now I show you. And here you can see actually what actually is under the hood of Midjourney and DALL-E and other softwares. So let's dive into software. This one is Comfy UI. It's a Node software. I'm running this in cloud using a Google Colab. At the end, in the next day, I'll share this Google Colab. Then you can just start the same software. I'll release open source because here basically there is a lot of code that I had to implement to making the right, for example, plugin for make a video, and a lot of checkpoint download. This one actually are the tensor. I know that this one is very confused, but I'm a software developer, so I had to rewrite some stuff as I need. And the result of all this code, basically, it's this interface with a different model that I can change. And this one actually is the model for realistic things. And here, actually, you can see how under the hood this one it works. So you have a checkpoint that is basically your model. You have the prompt. This one basically it's a positive prompt, and this one actually is a negative prompt. Okay, and this one is the case sample that you take in input the positive, the negative, and using this parameter that you can control, so that you can control the quality. After you need just VIA decode. This one actually it's something that is in the algorithm of Stable Diffusion. VIA is for variable auto encode. So here basically there is an encode So the data is compressed, and then the VIA is decoded, and from the decoding, basically, it builds the images. The nice stuff of Comfy UI is that basically you have a lot of plugins. So if you go in Manager and you go like in install model, you can have a lot of different models. These are all models that you can install in Comfy UI. So you have illustration, you have the control net, and I suggest you to take confidence actually with this kind of terms, VIA and all these terms that are basically a way to drive the algorithm of the stable diffusion. So basically, solution. And we can go really crazy because we are in a cloud machine that it's like I don't remember how many is here, but it's let me check if I have a way to check the RAM. No, okay, but anyway, nothing in my local machine. Normally, I could run the entire software from an iPad as well. Just you need just a web browser, Google account, and basically this Collab, Google Collab. Now I have the Pro, but Google Collab is completely for free. So basically, you can make the resolution crazy, like for 80. So make a 4K, and they will use the processor of Google. So let's try to do a batch, and let's try to do real time. I have no idea about how it will take, but you can see that actually will be quite. It could be quite fast for that resolution here, or not. Let's see. Anyway, let's just keep the problem. Or maybe we just went too much crazy with the resolution, but let's see. And then the next R&D will be basically always with the Visual Effect environment about in-paint capability. So doing the mask and try to get some masking some zone to change just the zone that I masked. Animation and video, this one I'm very curious to see this one. Deepfake in 4K resolution that basically we use in VFX environment for de-aging actors. Like, for example, it was used in the last Indiana Jones. And then my holy grail will be make a 3D model from a 2D image. This one will be absolutely a goal. So let's see Comfy UI, what it is doing. Okay, it's just calculating. And this one actually, it's one of the most fast machine in Google that you can use. So I can imagine this one in local, how much will take. Crazy amount of time. Now probably I'll stop this one and I'll show you another workflow, because the nice stuff about this workflow is that you can basically load a different workflow. Like, for example, I have the chocolate commercial here, and let's see. So basically, you can save your own workflow and oh, it's not working. Yeah, it's here. So basically, this one actually is another workflow. I'm always load the checkpoint, but at this point, actually, I'm using the image as as a source. So basically, the nice stuff for all this kind of, and here actually you have also an upscale. So basically, from the low resolution, he will upscale the image to get some better detail. Let's see if we can. Okay, we can. No, I don't have any more the image here, so probably I'll be not able to show you the real workflow. But anyway, the most important thing is to understand actually that you can add all node that you want. Like for example, you need of course to understand how those nodes go together. Then you need to understand by the documentation of ConfUI which kind of node you can connect. But actually, the software make you give you an help, because here basically there are some nodes that you can basically completely connect. So basically, if I connect another node, you can see that this node is different from this one because the input and the output are different. So this one actually is a concept that is very similar to some VFX software like compositing software. So basically, ConfUI for me was the natural way to go, because it was a really good. Let's see if I can see. Oh yeah, I have actually. I have this one. If I can show you something real time. So basically, this one is the same chocolate that we saw before, and you can see the calculation chain. So every time that there is a green outline, it's basically making some calculation on this node. So basically, you will have this one. Actually, it's way faster, and this one will create an image using the input image that I showed you before, and then he will build the output of the previewing image that it will be standard resolution, and then we'll cheat using an upscale that will basically increase the resolution. And all of this workflow you can save, you can load, so you can have a different workflow for your different needs. And then yes, it's pretty much everything. Let's see the final calculation. So you can see basically the sampler timing that is going. And after that, we'll have the result. I will give you your space for answer, for a question if you have it, and I'd be happy to give you all answer if I know, of course.
Hi, Leonardo. I've got a question. Actually, this
Sure.
has been really interesting and inspiring. Do you feel now not so fearful of AI now that you've tackled this head on?
Yeah, I think so, that basically I can start to, it's actually what I'm trying to do now as a consultancy for VFX. A lot of clients actually are asking to build a hybrid pipeline that use AI as a final result. And then it's actually what I'm doing now. So I'm really less scared about this kind of technology, because I know how to use Fire.
Yeah, no, that's great news. That's exactly the investment that's worth it, is to face the fear. Brilliant. Good to know.
So this one actually is the result in a normal resolution, and in super resolution you can see the detail, the crazy detail about the chocolate. That it's something that the algorithm invented it himself, because I don't have this kind of details. If we put the original image just here, right? I don't have this kind of details in my original image. So basically, the AI improve a lot my image. Essentially using a prompt that describe like a chocolate flow, chocolate Ferrero Rocher. So he understood also what is a Ferrero Rocher, because actually is that the Ferrero Rocher. With the warm light, high quality, and depth of field testing and reflection. One really cool thing about Comfy UI is that if you go at the end of the a word like chocolate floor on warm light, and you press Control and the up arrow, you can give basically weight to this to this word. So the weight that you give, it will take more in consideration than the other all other word that you put to describe something. So I was like amazed, because this one it's for me consistent. I would say it's really consistent. And also the detail that he put on the chocolate, it's absolutely amazing. And also the how he changed the nuts. You see, I have a really really sharp nuts, but he understood actually. The algorithm understood what I was looking for, and this one actually is very amazing. So the AI, if you can control the algorithm with some image in input, I think so that it will be a really huge game changer. So yeah, if you have any other question, I would be happy to answer.
I'm sorry, I will have to pass on to Clay, because we are running out of time.
Okay.
However much I like staring at this Ferrero Rocher, because it looks really delicious. But if I think everyone here, or most of us, are on Slack, so please feel free to post your questions on Slack. Yeah. Leo is there as well, so he will be able to follow up from there as well. Very sorry, just mindful of time, and that we still have one speaker waiting. Yeah. Thank you very much, Leo. That has been great. And it looks like a lot of research done. So a round of applause. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, over to Clay, who's going to give us a good chat about pair programming.
Right. Well, hello, everyone, and greetings from the United States. My name is Clay Turner, and I'm joining you from Louisville, Kentucky. If you're unfamiliar with Louisville, the Kentucky Derby is run here. It's our one international event, and probably our greatest, most well-known ambassador to the world was the late, great Muhammad Ali. I'm a founder and fractional CTO. We're going to be talking today about AI code pairing, specifically with GitHub Copilot and Visual Studio Code. Not because it's the only example, it isn't, but it is the most prevalent to date. So I'm kind of coming from two different perspectives, really, as a founder and a chief technology officer, and those two perspectives compete a bit on the topic of AI. On the one hand, as a founder, I'm super excited about the opportunity to accelerate the development of minimum viable product, get to market faster, iterate very quickly on customer wants and needs, reducing onboarding and learning time for developers, not just with code in general, but my code, and extending financial runway Startups and scale-ups are always trying to squeeze every amount out of whatever funding they've received. So very excited about everything that AI offers as a founder, but as a chief technology officer, I'm interested in ensuring code quality, reducing errors, maintaining security. A lot of my background has been in fintech and health tech. So meeting compliance obligations has been critical. And then also tracking licenses. And what I mean by that really is where does this code come from, really? How do I account for that in product development? That comes into play later if you are building something that you're taking to market that you hope to see acquired through a due diligence process. There's going to be great interest in where the code came from. So two perspectives, excited about AI overall. I just wanted to mention that. So I personally have had a long love-hate relationship with code. Some of you might very well identify. I began coding professionally in 1995 as I entered the university system. I've been a technical co-founder and CTO for a number of companies since. I've led development teams in the United States and Europe, and I maintain skills as a cloud architect and full stack developer. I don't know everything, nobody does. And this stuff is moving so incredibly quickly, you can't stay an expert for long. You can see some of the languages that I've worked with over the years. We have come a very long way since my first integrated development environment. Back in the mid-90s, that would have been something called Visual Basic. This was before you had Visual Studio and the various IDEs integrated into it. Certainly long before we had VS Code. We've seen a lot of advancements, and we take a lot of them for granted today. But every single one of those advancements along the way was met with some skepticism and apprehension and criticism. And over my 30 years, I've seen a lot of that, and I think it's appropriate to acknowledge it as we look at some of the criticisms and concerns with AI in code production. So when I was coming on the scene, it was when we first began having IDEs. There was criticism that it was going to make developers dumber, lazy, and that they wouldn't understand code or the command line tools that they needed. The .NET framework and Java platforms were coming on big. And again, some of the same criticisms. Developers are not going to understand computer science and the underlying fundamentals that make it work. What kind of brain drain does that cause? And also, too, perhaps worse, that people would become beholden to one of two behemoths, in that time, Microsoft or Oracle Sun Microsystems. Even Agile, which really powers innovation today, everything that we produce, it really is through an Agile process, DevOps practices. But at one time, that was met with skepticism. How on earth can you produce quality code and ship that every 2 weeks? Open source versus licensed. I was on the wrong side of history with that one. I adopted it, but I had concerns about security, etc. And back to, again, some of the intellectual property considerations and including it in product development. That has a lot of implication today for AI code pairing, which we'll see in a bit. And on the list goes. NoSQL databases, skepticism. Cloud computing, there was a lot of skepticism. Again, back to my fintech and health tech background. Moving from on-prem into the cloud was scary. Microservices architecture, containerization, serverless development, blockchain for development, right down to energy consumption. Always skepticism and criticism. And what we see with AI code pairing are debates about the accuracy of the code suggestions, code security, code churn, bloat, copyright, and ethical considerations, and of course, the potential for job displacement. There's always a kernel of truth to the skepticism, but progress tends to march on, and so will we. So Copilot doesn't want you to fly solo, and indeed you won't, because you'll be in the good company of more than one organization. And it's important to understand, I think, some of the relationships to the extent that we can among them. So GitHub is where a lot of code is stored. Virtually everybody who is involved in software development in one form or another has probably used GitHub, code in public repositories and also in private repositories. Most of the code I work with is in private repositories. Microsoft owns GitHub, has for some number of years, and thus has a great deal of access to those public repositories. And then we have OpenAI, and there's a kind of a mysterious relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI. None of us fully understand it outside of those two organizations, but we know it's a very powerful relationship because we saw that just a few weeks ago with the firing of Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and his immediate return, flexing some Microsoft muscle. So the real magic here in code production is OpenAI. It's by their GPT-4 Turbo large language model. Prior to that, prior to the fall, really, of last year, you would have been using GPT-3.5, not quite as powerful. But the OpenAI model has been trained on all of that public code from GitHub. It has taught it how to write code. And most of that code that it's going to suggest will be original code, but sometimes it's going to propose code that is very similar, if not identical, to the code that it found in the original public repositories that the model was trained on. And that has implications for us. We'll touch on here in a moment. Copilot really kind of sits in the middle. It tries to improve the experience that you're going to have inside of VS Code. We'll touch on how it does that a bit in a moment. But the real magic here happens with OpenAI. Copilot also works in other integrated development environments of choice, Visual Studio, most of the JetBrains IDEs as well. And there's growing competition. So JetBrains, if you're familiar with it, and their various IDEs have Code with Me, which received kind of an overhaul in the fall. It also uses GPT-4 Turbo, best we can understand, as well as some other proprietary models. And then Google has Duet AI, which also has extensions for VS Code and the JetBrains IDEs. So growing competition. Copilot is not the only kid on the block. Not going to belabor the pricing. Obviously, people can look at that themselves. This is obviously in USD. Currency is going to be different for some of you. It's roughly $10 a month for a Copilot individual, $19 for business. And what I really want to kind of highlight here is that they are still trying to figure out how to price this stuff. Best I can surmise. It's a bit ambiguous sometimes what you're going to get with each. If you look at the current pricing, it's changed in terms of what they define it includes. So pay attention to that so that you understand what you're actually getting. There is a pretty significant difference between individual and Copilot that we'll touch on in a moment, but honestly, there's not a whole lot of difference for my sake, and I still use the individual version. They also have Copilot Enterprise Edition, if you have an enterprise account. And probably one of the most interesting things about it when it's available is that it can use your private repository code where the other two pricing tiers do not. And I think that's going to address some of the concerns that we often hear in criticisms of code pairing. If it's looking at your code repository, your practices, if you have expert coders that are contributing to your code, then it's going to make better suggestions, we hope. It's really easy to add the Copilot VS Code extension. Won't belabor that. You just go to the marketplace and install it. You have to have VS Code installed, obviously, for that to work. Once you do, VS Code thinks that it should be making suggestions, but it won't do that unless you have purchased the add-on. So within GitHub, you would have to purchase the plugin. In my case, the add-on. In my case, I'm using the individual. You can also purchase it as an organization and get on the business plan. And why would you want to do that? I think it probably has to do with policies. So regardless of the subscription that you're in, understanding policies is important for coders. Here's why. So first off, using your code. Anytime that it's making a suggestion, it's sending snippets of your code across the wire. You need to know that. And can they use it? Can they not? If you look at the individual subscription today, it doesn't talk about the fact that you still have the ability to turn that off. It's possible that in the future you won't. So just again, pay attention to how they're changing what they're loading into the pricing tiers. Suggestions matching public code. So again, this goes back to some of my concerns as really both a founder and a chief technology officer, which is understanding where the code came from. Will there be some downstream liability associated with where that code was sourced? And you can turn that off if you want to. If you allow it, then there's also another feature called code referencing that will try, and I say try, it's not perfect, to point out where it found code that matched it, either exactly or a close approximation, so that you can consider the license associated with the code that it's pulled in. Again, you don't want to get into third-party licensing disputes down the road, and that's what this is here to help avoid. But again, will that continue to be available in the individual version, just the business version, the enterprise? Just continue to pay attention to that, I would recommend. So let's jump into some code. We're going to quickly look at how you use integrated chat, how you optimize prompts. This is generative AI, so it is all about prompts still. Getting some inline suggestions, which is really what's typically most impressive, avoiding some common pitfalls, and again, back to understanding your exposure if you're developing a product that you're going to take to market, as opposed to just writing code for yourself, where you probably don't care quite as much. So with that, hopefully you can see my screen. I've tried to enlarge the code, but I'm just going to point out some areas. There are lots of YouTube videos that showcase these features in 3 to 5 minutes, so I'm just going to touch upon them. First of all, integrated chat. So a lot of us, when AI, generative AI really kind of became mainstream last year, and we saw that it could write code for us, we would do so in ChatGPT in a separate browser session. And this is fully integrated, so you don't have to leave your integrated development environment to do that. So for example, just take a quick prompt, see if it works, because I'm doing this live. And you can plug this in. And let's say you have a research question. And for example, this particular project that I'm in right now, it uses Python at its base tier, moves up through a Node middle tier, and uses React on the front end. I'm just really began pushing hard on Python last year. My prompt here is basically, hey, I use fetch a lot to make requests to APIs in Node.js. How do I do that in Python? And this is one of the great advantages, I think, with pair coding is it can help you learn a new language, help you learn new syntax. If you know one, it can help you learn another. So GitHub Copilot is thinking, and now it's coming back, and it's basically giving me a recommendation, give me some code. But again, I would still need to copy and paste that code over into my editor to use it. Some other cool things about the integrated chat is whenever you create a prompt, it is trying to interpret what you want and build more context based upon the environment itself. Now, you don't get that if you just go to ChatGPT. What do I mean by that? Well, if you ask, why am I getting an error in this code, for example, it's going to try and determine what code you're talking about. So it will look at the windows that are currently open. Where is your insertion point in your code? Do you have code that's highlighted? And it's going to try and craft a prompt that is contextualized to give you what you want. There are also some additional things that you can do to get very specific in that prompt. You saw some of this earlier in Mick's presentation. One of which is what they call agent. I don't particularly like that nomenclature because to me that means something else, but the ampersand, you can basically give it the context of where in the IDE you're talking. Do you have a question about something you're seeing in the terminal? Do you have a question about VS Code in general, how to do something? Or do you have a question about something in your workspace, which is usually the case. That's going to be code that's selected, open windows. You can even go so far as to provide a specific file and ask whatever question you want. Why is this not working? Suggest a way to do this more efficiently, etc. You also have your slash commands. And so with the slash commands, you can do things like explain, and it will again take a look at, well, okay, do you have something that's selected, that it will explain what it is, why it does what it does. Similar to that, you can do slash doc, and it will try to create documentation for you. It generally does a pretty decent job of that. And other things. So beyond that, there are also these things called context variables. So again, so I don't have to copy and paste code, or I don't have to copy and paste that error that I just received in my terminal. I can reference it. So I can say, I'm interested in, tell me why the last terminal command didn't work. What was the error? And so it will reference that, build the context, and send that on. So that's working with chat in the integrated window. It's a step up from using ChatGPT, but the real magic for most people is going to be inline. And so I'm just going to go here, and there we go. All right, so it's assuming that maybe I want to comment the code that's below it. I don't, but that would be a valid assumption. As I begin to type, it's giving me additional code recommendation. I don't want that, but I'm going to say post. I don't want chat. I want to suggest. And at this point, this is actually giving me very valid code. And so I'm just going to hit tab. And this is valid code as well. That's exactly what I would want, tab. And this is exactly what I want. Actually, let me go back. There we go. Tab. So where did it get this? Not necessarily from public repositories, etc., but it's analyzing my code. It's looking at how I've written code and what I've done in the rest of this file when it creates a prompt and it passes context to try and get the best possible answer. And this is a key point. It will accelerate and augment good code, and it will also accelerate and augment bad code. So just be cognizant of that. It's going to take a look at what you're doing, what you've done, and it's going to try and help you to do just that. So some of the arguments about the code suggestion, if you're an expert, it's going to accelerate that. If you're a beginner, it might just accelerate that as well. Other things to consider, it's always good to just go ahead and define your imports. Any context that you provide and kind of stubbing out your code is going to help it to craft better context when it makes requests to Copilot to give you suggestions. Also, too, you'll see in different areas these little sparkle icons, and it will give you some suggestions there. Sometimes it might drive you nuts that it's constantly adding in additional code comments. You can turn those off. Right now it's giving me a nice little spinner, but that's usually the little Copilot icon. And you can disable completions temporarily if they are driving you batty. So understanding exposure, just want to quickly touch on that. I'm not going to describe this in full. I just want to give you, again, a bit more context for what's happening. Your code, your question, any context that it's collecting from your workspace or whatever, it's essentially built to try and get the best answer for you, is being sent off. So if you're sensitive to that, you do need to understand that. Copilot is basically trying to desensitize things. So if you've maybe included credentials, maybe you've got your OpenAI key or some username, password in your code, it's going to try to remove that, and it's going to try to recommend maybe a better way to think about that. But you know, that might not be foolproof, so be aware of it. Copilot's also going to try and take any responses back from OpenAI, GPT-4, evaluate the responses, and try to find the best response and pass that back to you as well. So it's trying to create the best possible user experience. But again, I would recommend that if you are sensitive to what code is going off-site, to understand this, look at the privacy statements associated with the tools that you're using. And also just know that the pricing and what you get in each pricing tier seems to be blurred a bit and changing. So I would stay on top of that. And also just be aware that even some of what we've talked about here doesn't technically, if you read the fine print, fall within GitHub SOC 2 compliance. So again, if you're sensitive to those types of matters, just go in with eyes wide open. What do I think's next? I think we're going to continue to see better code suggestions. That's simply because the models are getting smarter, and also they're accepting more context. So just like a person who's sitting next to you, paired in your programming, if you give them more information, more insight, they're probably going to give you better answers. And the same is true with these models. We're likely to see more features, and that's because of competition. Competition is good, and we benefit from that. Tighter controls because people demand them, but I think we're going to see those continue to filter into more tightly defined pricing tiers. So again, pay attention to that would be my recommendation. And it's possible that we'll see higher prices in the future, because believe it or not, even though you know, having to pay for these additional services might be a bit of a burden, the general consensus is that the providers are actually spending more money to give it to you at this point to basically get your loyalty as loss leaders. It costs a lot to provide this kind of insight with AI on the back end, and so you might want to get in while it is the price that it is. We'll see what happens. So again, you can reach out to me on Slack if you have any questions. I know we're just past 1, but I'll stop sharing and entertain any questions if you have them.
I think we have one question from Charlotte. So Charlotte, would you like to unmute yourself and ask it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. That was really interesting to see how it's working in the coding world, development world. You've been actually coding longer than I have, so it's good to hear that. I had loads of questions. Sorry, what question am I going to ask? Oh yeah, someone's actually answered it already in the chat about the choice between GPT-4, OpenAI source, and using MS Copilot. So apparently you have to pay for both. Someone's already answered that question. And then my other question was, you know, US is really ahead of all the legal privacy rules and, you know, going ahead using the tools. Can we use everything that you've talked about today in Europe? If you know that, the answer to that.
To the best of my knowledge, at least the developers that I work with within the European Union, they're using these tools. But specifically, I would recommend obviously diving in. When we talk about privacy, et cetera, obviously there are big considerations when you cross the Atlantic, and you know, obviously all of us are wondering what's going to happen next with some of the privacy and copyright considerations, et cetera, across the entire generative AI spectrum. And honestly, I think a lot of that is probably going to be moved to the courts for potentially decades, certainly in this country.
Yeah, that's what I've seen, and lots of discussion. I haven't seen any fast and you know, solid rules around it, which I think is the point, that there aren't yet, possibly. So it's still being understood. Yeah, I can see how like junior developers, or I hate using that word, but developers starting out and like wanting to learn, that would be super cool. But as long as there's like a peer review still from someone more knowledgeable, so they don't go down the wrong route. Like you were saying, you know, it's only as good as what you put in. So that's also really interesting to me. Anyway, right, thank you very much. It was really good talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Any other questions? Come on, don't be shy. If anyone is typing, I'll let them type. But in the meantime, if anyone would like to rewatch any of these talks today, there's been a lot, I think. So there might be something that was, missing, or you might want to revisit. The talks have been recorded, and I think they're going to be published in about 48 hours. So somewhere around Thursday, please expect it in the Freelancer Hub if you would like to rewatch it. Also, in the meantime, we have started a conversation on Slack in case there are some more questions. Oh, I think there is one question from Jan. Will AI make large compute render farms redundant? Jan, is this a question specific to any of our speakers or just to anyone? Maybe someone would like to pick up and answer. To our code guru.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are two.
That would be something, honestly, I would need to dig into more deeply personally to be able to answer in any kind of meaningful way.
Any more questions? Just looking through the chat if we haven't missed anything, but I think everything else has been answered. Okay. All right. Well, a round of applause for Clay. Really great talk, and also some more food for thought for slightly different aspect of AI. I think we always think about ChatGPT and then maybe Midjourney, but actually there is so much more to it on the technical side. So I learned something today as well. So thank you very much. As I said, if you'd like to continue the discussion, we're on our Slack as well, and the recordings will be published very, very soon. If in the meantime you have any more ideas about what should be our next talk, either AI related or not, let us know. And one big ask, tomorrow you're going to receive a feedback form. If you could please fill it in. It's very short. We would really appreciate it. It helps us shape the next quarter of events. So we want to run something that makes sense for you. So thank you so much once again, and hope to see you soon, maybe next week, on another round of events. Thank you so much. Take care.